Okay, good morning, everyone. And thank you for taking the time out of your day to join our webinar. My name is Brian Boscher, and I'm the president of Condo Control Central. I'm joined today by my colleague, Greg Vieira, who is our customer success team lead. And together, we're going to be presenting a short webinar on our new virtual meeting feature. We want to make this as interactive as possible, so please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to send us your questions, and we're going to pause at various points through the meeting and answer your questions. So before we begin, I just want to take a moment to remind you on how to get help and how to contact our team if you need us. Our office hours are Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and we're available by phone or email. For technical support or access-related issues, you can contact our support team, contact@Condo Control Central, or the phone number you see there. You can also contact our dedicated customer success management team. They are here to help you with more strategic things like how to get the most out of your account, how to make use of certain features and so forth. That team consists of Greg, Christine, Andrea, and our newest addition to the team, Gerard, who joined us last week. So you can reach them by emailing customer success at Condo Control Central or through the phone number as well. Before we begin, I just want to remind you that this is the second of 5 webinars in our fall webinar series. We have 3 more remaining after today. On the November 11th, we're going to have one about online payments with Rotessa and Stripe. And then on November 25th, we'll have a deep dive on the amenity booking feature. So we've had lots and lots of interest in this because of COVID and the need to safely control the flow of people as people reopen amenities. So we're going to dig into that. And then on Wednesday, December 9th, our last webinar of the year, we're going to be doing a year-end review of what's new at CCC. So I'm just going to send out in the chat a link to our blog post that talks about the webinar series. And if you click the link, you can go in there and register for any of the upcoming webinars that you might be interested in attending. So now we're going to move on to today's agenda and get started. Today we're talking about everything to do with virtual meetings. So first off, what is a virtual meeting? Second, why not just use Zoom for virtual meetings? After that, what does the current Ontario emergency order allow condos to do? And we'll talk briefly also about other areas as well, because we realize we've got lots of you attending from outside of Ontario. And then quick discussion on what's the difference between e-voting and proxy voting. We'll go over what it is exactly that we offer, and then we'll go through a demo, talk about pricing, and we'll have a wrap-up Q&A at the end. So as I mentioned, we want to make this interactive, so no need to hold your questions till the end. Just sort of ask them in the Q&A as they come up, and we'll break throughout to answer them. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Greg Vieira. Greg is going to be walking you through today's webinar. Greg, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here again. Hi, everybody. Hope you're enjoying your Wednesday morning. So first section is, what is virtual meeting? So think of our virtual meeting as a service that helps corporations to collect votes in advance of a meeting and facilitates voting during a live meeting. We have an integration with Zoom meetings so that participants can hear and see what's going on within the meeting. We also provide a live moderator to assist the chairperson during the meeting. So it's very effective that we apply those features that it's available for our audience as a client. So I'll pause it for here if there's any questions or so forth.
No questions yet. I'm assuming they'll start to come in as we get further into it.
Okay, perfect. So the next portion is, why not just use Zoom meetings for your virtual meetings? Well, the answer is yes, you can. For small corporations, typically less than 50 units, you can manually manage the use of Zoom meeting by yourself. So you would need to control and verify who's in the meeting. You have the ability to set up polls within the zone itself. The challenges of setting up polls is that you cannot avoid the duplications of multiple votes from the same user as a proxy, it counts as a one vote per unit. And the other thing we also seen is that you have other solutions which use emails to vote, but emails can also be delayed as people wait for them to arrive in order for them to cast their vote. Our next section is, what does the current Ontario emergency order allow? So on April of this year, given COVID-19 measurements, the government of Ontario took the initiative to help corporations during the COVID-19 outbreak. So it allowed corporations to use the electronic voting without passing a bylaw. Prior to COVID-19, in the use of electronic voting within an AGM, you had to pass a bylaw, which you had to gather 50+1% of the overall of units in order to take advantage of the electronic voting. Just a few weeks ago, the government of Ontario announced that they have extended this order until May 31st of 2021, as it was previously allowed until the end of November. So now corporations have the ability to have that extensions, and they can take advantage of the electronic voting up until May 2021.
So just a comment here, Greg, before we move on. Condo Control Central is based in Ontario in Canada. We do have clients all across Canada and the US. And so we realize the legislative requirements are going to be different everywhere. However, we are seeing a trend in that we're definitely having lots of inquiries and interest in moving towards online or electronic voting features. Particularly, we've seen in New Jersey and in Florida, for example, the governments have rolled out specific requirements. So it's the way we look at it. You can sort of take a look at your local requirements, understanding what we offer, and then if you think it's a good fit, you can get in touch, and then we'll help you work through it.
Okay, so next I'll have Brian speak about the difference between the two, which is the electronic voting and proxy voting.
Okay, so we see this question quite a lot in people want to understand, proxy voting, like filling out a proxy form, assigning a proxy who's a person that's voting on your behalf. That's been around forever, and that's a very sort of traditional way to do it. And the first feature we saw in the market and that we developed was to take that proxy feature, put it online so it was easier to gather and tabulate those paper proxy forms. Then the next evolution was e-voting. And what e-voting did is it really took those proxies and replaced it with the concept of a digital ballot box. So you were still, as a owner, you were effectively doing the same thing. You had come to the site, you would fill out the questions, who do you want to vote for? Do you want to approve the appointment of the auditor, et cetera? And those things would still be filled out, but rather than generating a paper proxy form that was a PDF that could be downloaded, we're generating a digital ballot that then gets stored securely on our servers and is tabulated for the vote and for the meeting. So e-voting is a bit simpler because in Ontario, as an example, the government has dictated a specific form of proxy, and it's quite lengthy and very detailed, and there's a whole bunch of different questions. E-voting is a bit more streamlined, and so it really sort of makes it a much simpler process. I'm just going to pause for a second here before we move on to the next slide. We had a question here from Emilio. Emilio asks, do you tabulate the hands up or hands down when voting, or do we have to count them ourselves one by one? That's a great question. So when we get to the demo part where we show you how it works, the voting is actually done outside of Zoom. So the counting is done automatically in the Condo Control Central platform. And then Linda asked a question. Linda, your question, I just got a couple words here. It says still private. I don't see the whole question. If you want to resubmit the question in a little more detail, we'll answer it in the next break here. Okay, Greg, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So next one is what CCC offers. So we offer authentication where the owners are joined to the meeting via a secure link along with their unit number and real name, as the core foundation of the authentication comes from the unit owner database that's already on the unit file in Condo Control Central. We also offer the live voting option, which voters are sent in seconds to their screen where owners can cast their vote. The system only allows 1 vote per unit. The third option that we offer is the seamless integration with the existing database, along with the collection of e-consent records that's within Condo Control Central. And the last but not least is the collection of votes or proxies when the package goes up until the voting's closed during the meeting. So typically there's a 2-week period of time that when your AGM packet goes out to the unit owners, you have about 14 days up to the meeting. So between that time, you have the ability to collect proxies throughout the notification and reminders that Condo Control Central offers via email, voice, and text. So we'll pause here. We just have a few questions. So
yep. So I'll go through and we'll answer some of these questions. Some of them are going to be answered by the demo, but we'll still go through them anyway. So first question, Emilio says, proxy voting allows me to change my vote prior to the meeting as many times as I want, and only the most recent one prior to the meeting will count. But in e-voting, if I vote in advance, I only have 1 chance to vote and can't change my vote. Is this correct? So people have to be careful and understand they only have 1 vote and can't change their mind after they vote. Before I answer that, I'm just going to, Janice here also has a similar question. She's understood it the other way around. She says, why are owners allowed to change their original votes? This is not allowed at a live meeting. Okay, so these are great questions. So this is the interesting part about this, is that the legality and the details of it have changed, and our understanding has evolved based on what people are doing in the market. So when we first built the feature, the interpretation that our legal counsel, so we work with a firm called Fogler Rubinoff LLP, they have a condo practice here in Toronto. Their advice to us was this should be treated like a ballot box. In that, I fill out my ballot. It is secure, it's private. I put it in the box. I can't get it back because you can't dig through the box and say, hey, I want to get mine back. That's just not how it works. Once you submit it, it's done, it's out of your hands. That was the original interpretation. What we've seen happen since is that other vendors in the market have designed their solution the other way so that people can edit their vote up until the meeting. So you can submit your vote and then it's there. If you decide you want to go back and change it, I was going to vote for Jerry and now I'm going to vote for Janice. You have the option to do that. And so based on what is happening out there, the legal advice we've received is that seems to be the accepted way to do it. So now we sort of have we're working on making an adjustment so that people can edit their votes up until the meeting. So a good question. Next we have a quick question from Jerry here. It says unit number and real name, not using email address. So basically the authentication goes through an email. So we basically send an email to all of the owners. They get the link, they click the link, and then it takes them into Condo Control where they can vote or join the live meeting once it has started. This email, of course, is linked back to the unit number and real name so that so importantly, we know who it is that's voting. We've validated that. And also very importantly, we confirm then that we're only getting 1 vote per unit. So Emilio just wrote back and said, this is a better option when you can change your vote right up to the meeting. Thanks. So thank you for that, Emilio. And then, so the next question from Christine. Christine says, so no new business could be introduced during the meeting as a vote is finalized before the meeting. No, so that's not quite the case because it's basically just like with a proxy. So if you submit, in the old days when we're talking on paper, let's say you're going to be away on vacation and you can't attend the meeting, so you submit your proxy to management ahead of time. You're able to vote on the proxy for everything that you knew about that was included in the package when the meeting was sent. This is exactly the same with e-voting. So with e-voting, you get the ballot, you can review it, you vote on everything. And yes, you can still introduce new business at the meeting. And as it was in the old days, in the physical real meetings, only the people who showed up at the meeting in person would be there to vote on that. And so yes, the people who voted ahead of time and aren't attending the meeting would miss out on that, but that's sort of the nature of how it was before. Okay, so next question here from Linda. Linda asks, what if they do not have a computer or iPad to vote? Great question. So then you would submit your proxy back to management, just like you always would have. You get your paper copy of the proxy, you fill it out, you decide who you're voting for, you give that paper one back to management. And then management will forward that and gets included in the count for quorum and for voting. Great questions here this morning. So I got two more questions here, and then we're going to move on, and we'll do more questions at the end. So first question from Barry: if I change my vote multiple times, is it not possible for my spouse to then vote? How does the system know? She has her own CCC login. Excellent question. So that is one of the important authentication things that we take care of on the condo control side that you couldn't achieve through Zoom alone. We know that you have Barry and his spouse, they both have their own logins, but they are both in CCC under the same unit. So after Barry goes in and submits his vote, then if his spouse goes in and looks, she's going to see the vote option isn't there. It'll say your ballot has already been submitted. So great question. And last question here from Carrie. Carrie is asking, to meet quorum requirements, how do you do that as only those attend would constitute quorum? Great question. So Carrie, I'm sorry, I don't know where you're listening from. In Ontario, the way it works here is quorum is met by all of those people who submitted their proxies ahead of time, plus all of the people who attend the meeting live in person. So if your jurisdiction has a different quorum requirement, then you would count quorum based just on the people who are there in person. Okay, so we're going to pause there. We've got a couple more questions, and I'm going to we're going to save those just until the next sort of pause here. Maybe after the demo, we'll answer those. So Greg, you can go ahead with your presentation, and we'll take more questions later on.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So the next set of screenshots will be based on the unit owner journey, and then we'll also show the dashboard from a property management point of view. So I'll go ahead and start on the first screenshot. So this is the email that goes out. As you notice on the email itself, there's two links that the unit owner will be clicking. Once they click on those links, they are brought into what we call a landing page, which has information about the agenda for the AGM or the special meeting that the corporation is having. On the right-hand side, you have the ability to click Vote Now, and you also have the ability to join the virtual meeting. The following screen, once they click Vote Now, they are prompted to this window, which is the electronic voting interview based on the questionnaire from the proxy voting, whether it's vacant election or special matters voting. The next screenshot is where I have my three candidates and I have one position vacant. So in this example, I pick one option. And then the other screenshot is where you have the actually live meeting happening on the day of your AGM. So this screenshot here under the Vote Now, you have the ability to click Join the virtual meeting. So that button appears when the meeting is live, and the unit owner have two ways in joining the meeting. They can join by clicking on the links that has been sent from the notification of Condo Control Central, or they can log into Condo Control Central, click on the left-hand side and join from there. Once they join by clicking on that button, the next screen they receive is this screen, which is the browser version of the integration where Zoom comes. So you're probably familiar with those icons from Zoom. On the bottom there, you have your participants, you have your share screen, your questions, and the join audio options. So it's just the difference that it's not the application outside of the browser, it's built in within the browser in Condo Control Central. And then from a moderator slash chairperson point of view, you have the ability to set up questions and send it to your audience live. So this is where you have all your participants within the meeting and the question prompts right on their screen at the bottom for them to vote in real time. Whether it's a motion, whether you're pulling the voting from the actually questionnaire that was sent prior to the meeting. And from an administrator point of view, this shows you how you can create a motion for the attendees. So as you can see here, on the top right, you have add new question, or you can send existing question. When you add a new question, you can type the question and you can enter the timer on how long that question is going to be available for your audience. In this case, we're asking, what do you prefer for lunch? Chicken, beef, fish, and vegetarian. And then the audience will get those options, 4 options, and then they'll be able to select which one they want to submit. And once they submit, the vote are cast live and the results are presented live to the moderator itself.
Yep. So that is pretty much the demo. Greg, if you want to go back one screen, I think this is the real heart of what's going on here. So as an owner, you're seeing the meeting, including the video and the audio. And you can use all of the same Zoom features. If you have questions, you can send it through chat. If you want to unmute people during the meeting, the moderator can do that. And then this voting questions here is really the critical thing. This is where you've got the integration with Condo Control Central. So you're getting proper, accurate records of who's voting from which unit and so forth, rather than trying to handle that just through Zoom. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and answer more questions here. So, because Greg, I think that's everything we had up until pricing, right? So
that is correct, yes.
Yeah, so actually, why don't we talk about pricing first? If we go to that slide, I'll walk through that. And then we will go through all of the remaining questions we've got here. So sorry, we just saw a question. Sheila was asking, will there be a recording? She arrived late. Yes, Sheila, don't worry. We will send you the recording afterwards so that you can definitely watch it at your leisure. Okay, so here we are with the cost. So we have 2 parts to the pricing on this one. The first part is the cost of using the software. So this is $2.99 per unit with a minimum cost of $4.99 per meeting. That will get you the proxies, proxy or e-voting leading up to the meeting, and then the use of the live meeting software, including Zoom, during the meeting itself. So like we said, if you're a very small corporation, let's say you've got just 30 units, quorum is like 8 people, you can probably do your own Zoom meeting. If you're much bigger than that, then it does start to get a little more complicated. And so then it makes sense to think about using Condo Control. The second piece that we have is an optional add-on where we provide a live moderator to run the meeting and work with your chairperson for up to 2 hours. So there is a one-time cost for that of $1,000. It's $999. What that gets you, we do a live practice session ahead of time. We set up the meeting, we join, we work very closely with your moderator. This is really if your moderator is not quite as tech savvy, they've not done a virtual meeting before, this can be a good option to make sure that your process is smooth. So that's the cost. I'm going to go through, we've got a whole bunch of questions here now. So I'm going to go through these and answer as many of them as I can. So first off, Janice asked, when does voting close? So usually what we do is voting stays open right up until the actual question or election happens during the meeting. So if I submit my vote well in advance, that's fine. If I want to change it, that's fine. Or if I just want to show up for the meeting and vote live when the the chairperson actually says, okay, now we're having an election and do my vote then, that's totally okay too. That's a nice thing about how the software works. It tallies all of those votes and counts them correctly so that you have an accurate representation. Next question. So Wayne asks, how does the manager submit a paper proxy? Great question. All the manager has to do is upload the proxy to Condo Control Central through the administrative dashboard. Jerry asks, is voting in advance allowed, and would that not count towards quorum too? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Voting in advance is allowed, and it will depend on where you are, but here in Ontario, yes, those advance votes count for quorum. Laura asks, do managers have access to a dashboard to see the proxy vote tally, and if required, a bylaw vote tally? Yes, absolutely. So we have a really nice dashboard. That's maybe the one thing we forgot on the screenshots today. You as a manager log in, you can see the progress, how many you need for quorum, how many you have left for quorum, and then the results of the voting so far. So Emilio asks, so when there's more than one owner for a unit, whoever gets in there first can vote multiple times up to the cutoff, and the other owner is blocked. Yes, that is how it works currently. As always with our software, we're very open to feedback, interested to hear people's ideas and suggestions on what makes more sense. Next from Jerry again, may participants share their headshots or use their camera during the meeting? Absolutely. So the way we've built this, the Zoom software we're using right now is the webinar feature. The webinar feature is quite expensive. And so we built this to use the Zoom meeting feature, which allows almost as many participants. And they've recently added a whole bunch of security controls that makes the Zoom meeting almost as effective as the webinar. So yes, the short answer, participants can use their headshot, like you see on my Zoom profile today, or their live video if they prefer. Carmen asked, what is the price? So we've just talked about that. That's great. So we have a lot of seniors who do not want to participate with condo control. How can they participate in the meeting? That's from Linda. Okay, yeah, Linda, that's a great question. So two things we can do there. One, definitely get them to send in their paper proxies to the management ahead of time. That's number one. Number two, there is a dial-in option for Zoom. And this actually works really well. They can't vote during the meeting because obviously Condo Control Central is web-based, but they can dial in, listen to the meeting, and then Zoom has a phone feature where if you push, I think it's *9, they can raise their hand, and then the moderator can recognize them, unmute them, they can ask a question, and they can have a reasonable amount of participation from their phone, even if they don't want to use a computer. We are seeing more and more people though joining from like an iPad, where more and more seniors are using technology, especially with COVID. It's really driven adoption because in order to stay connected, Zoom unfortunately becomes one of the only ways to do that. Next question from Andy. Do we need someone to take notes during the AGM? Short answer, yes. So the same way you would normally have a minute taker during a regular meeting, what we've been seeing is that most people still employ those same minute takers. They dial into the meeting, they listen, they take their notes just like they would from a normal meeting. The benefit here is that you have the recording available so that you can send them the recording afterwards. It can make it a little bit easier to get the notes. Question here from Christine. She said, can you go through the demo again as it was very quick? Sure, we'll go back to that in just a minute after I finish with everyone's questions here. So question here from Candace. Candace is asking, my understanding is the person cannot call into the meeting via standard phone. They can call in via standard phone, but the number is not available until 24 to 48 hours before the meeting. Will it be possible to get this further in advance going forward so it'll be included with the notice to owners sent 2 weeks before? Absolutely. We that number is just the regular Zoom dial-in number, and the meeting ID that can be sent, that can be generated as early as you like, and sent to participants. Next question. Christine is asking, would the live moderator replace the chair? Great question. Yes and no. So no, in that our moderator doesn't know anything about your condo business. So, we are not going to be, we don't have a script. You would usually still have your chairperson, and we would be providing the technical support to do everything that makes sure the digital meeting goes as smoothly as the in-person one. So that would include admitting people to the room, verifying their identity, cross-checking the list, making sure that we reach quorum, providing that information to the chair, and then sending out votes during the meeting and facilitating all of that. We would also then be able to help go through the questions as we are now, so people can submit questions, and then we read them out and work with the chair to make sure they're answered. So next from Candace, I understand that owners will see the join meeting link in their account. Is this available from when the notice to owners is sent, or only 24 to 48 hours, similar to the phone number? Great question. So the link where they go to join is the same, and it doesn't change. So that link and that landing page is there, and there is the text basically says this will be a Zoom meeting. And then when they come back to the page right before the meeting, that text changes into a button where they can click the button and see the actual meeting. So Bonnie, Bonnie, you're just saying you're having issues with audio. We'll make sure you get the video afterwards so that you can watch it at your leisure. Next question from Brian. Brian asks, how do you manage audio access by owners? Is this something we need to manage? The audio access, we've had, what we see is that 90% of people who join, they join by Zoom, so they don't really need the audio only access. We only see maybe a handful at most of people who need to join from audio only, and we help you manage that. And Awilda has a question. She's asking about the recording fee. Is the recording free? Absolutely. The recording is provided by Zoom, and we're happy to just share that with you after the meeting. There's no additional charge for that. So I'm just reading here. So Joanna has a question. Feature will be changed to allow owners to change their votes before the e-voting is closed. When this change is expected to occur, as currently we have e-voting feature going on, and if this is changed, we can advise owners before the AGM. Yep. So that's a great question, Joanna. We will get in touch after the meeting and let you know the details of that. We'll find out which property you're from. And Candace had the same question. So we'll update you both after the meeting. From Brian's asking if I can rephrase, can owners get audio access to ask their questions or make comments? Absolutely. So again, that's the dial-in number for the meeting. And yes, they can, everybody will be muted by default in the meeting, just like you all are right now. What happens after, so let's say you use the raise your hand feature, then the moderator will unmute you and say, we have Brian from Unit 305. Brian, you can go ahead and ask your question. Yep, and another question here from Christine, will the chair control the audio feature for mute, unmute? Absolutely. I have a question from, sorry, I can't pronounce your name here, Tizania. How long will the recording be kept of the AGM? Great question. So we send you the file after the meeting. Then it's up to you what you do with it. You store it how you like. Wayne is asking, can people vote by phone during the meeting? No, they cannot. So in order to vote, you have to be on the computer or submit, or you could use an iPad or submit your proxy ahead of time. Okay, so that looks like all of the questions. Oh, one more from Jerry here. Do you recommend 2 roles or 3? It says, 2 roles would be chair and moderator, or 3 chair, moderator, and technical. 2 is totally sufficient. So that's the chairperson could be one of your board members, your regional manager from your management company, or your lawyer if you like. And that role does what it has always done, which is use the meeting script, lead everybody through the meeting, recognize motions from the floor, etc. The second sort of new role is this, what we've called a moderator. It's really a more technical role where we're going to manage Zoom for you and facilitate the voting process. So when you say, we have a motion from the floor to approve the auditor for another year, we then take that motion, put it into our software, and send it out live to everybody. Okay, so let's go back, and we just want to go through the demo one more time. And so just from the start here, the registration process, for those of you who haven't used the feature before, we start with, this is assuming, of course, we've already got all of your contact data for all of your owners in Condo Control. We send an email. The introductory email says, here's the date and time of your meeting. Here's where it's going to be done on Zoom this year. And here's the link. They click the link. When you click the link, here is the landing page. And Candace is asking about the registration process. There's really no specific registration process. You either can cast your vote ahead of time, or you join the meeting. Either way, because we already know who you are. So there's not this process with like a regular meeting where you show up in person, you say, hey, I'm Brian. Okay, what's your unit number? We don't need to do that because we already know that information ahead of time. So after you click vote now, then we're going to take you through, and there is a screen where it shows your information and it says, hey, here's your unit number, confirm this is all correct. And then you sort of go on to the actual questions. So then, like Greg showed you here, this is an example of the e-voting question. So where you've got candidates for a board seat. In this case, we've got a single seat available, and so the person gets 1 vote. Moving on from here, that's if you have, let's say, a bylaw or multiple matters that are being voted on, it just presents them one by one and people vote. So it's pretty straightforward. In the meeting, now if we click the join the meeting button, then you're taken into the web meeting. And Greg, if you go to the next screen, this is this is the screen that they're going to see. Any votes will show up at the bottom here. So that's the process. Pretty straightforward. I think once people get in here, they see Zoom, it's very similar to what they're accustomed to. And then the votes pop up at the bottom. And once you have the audio connected, then we give instructions and reminders throughout the process to tell people how things work. Okay, and then last but not least, the screen here that Greg was just showing, this is as a moderator, or if you're running your own meeting, it's a very straightforward screen, how you send questions to your attendees. Okay, so we've got just a couple last questions here, and then we're going to wrap it up. Thank you all for your engagement and your questions. Really appreciate it. First question here. Do users require the Zoom app on their computer and not the free one? Great question. Nope, you do not require the Zoom app at all. You don't even have to install it, nor do you have to pay for Zoom. You simply visit the Condo Control Central link and then join the meeting. Next question. Since our next AGM is not until June 2021, what do we need to do to create a bylaw that allows electronic proxy voting, given we are still dealing with COVID-19? Great question. Let's all hope that by June next year, you are going to be having your meeting in person. But if you still want to use e-voting, you can talk to your lawyer. Your legal counsel will be able to provide you. They have a service where they'll draft up the bylaw that they think you should pass, and then you can get that out to your owners for them to vote on. Candace has a question. My understanding is that we can use the Zoom waiting room feature. Will you confirm, please? Absolutely, yes. So we definitely use the Zoom the Zoom waiting room feature. So everybody comes in, they're in the waiting room. We'll admit them. We usually sort of keep people in the waiting room until maybe 20 minutes before the meeting, and then we'll let them in so that they can confirm that they've been admitted correctly. Elena has a question. How does the minute taker know the unit number and the owner's name? Great question. So when people are joined to the meeting, the system will automatically set their name to have their unit number and their name. And so that makes it easy. So if they're in the chat and they ask a question, it'll say, 305-Brian. If people want to hide their last name, they're welcome to do that. They have that option when they join. Also, as the live moderator takes questions, the moderator will read out the person's name and unit number. Emilio has a question. If there's no registration, how do you keep non-owners from the virtual AGM if non-owners use CCC? That's a good question. We do that because attached to each profile, we already know if you're an owner or a resident. And so we are the virtual meeting feature is going to be restricted only to owners. The same way that you have any number of different features in Condo Control that are permission-based, we've applied those same permissions to the virtual meeting feature. Candace has a question. Can we ensure only one vote is recorded per unit when two users from one unit join the meeting with separate devices? Absolutely. That's a critical piece of functionality, and the system absolutely does that. So Linda says, so rentals do not vote. Absolutely not. Yeah, it's just like your regular meeting. So Barry is asking, can you compare the CCC product to your competitors? Great question. So a couple things here. As everyone on the call knows, you're all customers. The real benefit here is the fact that you don't need a separate database, a separate provider that you have to deal with. We deal with everything already in your database, so the setup is easier and more streamlined. The second thing, as we understand it, our reminder feature, and this is not new, this has been in place for a while, our reminder feature makes use of email and text messaging and voice messaging. As far as we understand, our competitors only use email. So the text and voice is really key to getting full participation in ensuring that you reach quorum. As soon as you RSVP and you say you're going to attend, then the messages stop. Or if you complete your proxy, then the messages stop. But yeah, that's one really big differentiator. The other differentiator, Greg, if you go back to the screen that shows the votes, this one here, this is a key, what we think is an improvement over what all the competition is doing. So a lot of the competing products, if you need to add a new question during the meeting, they will email you a link, and then all the owners have to go check their email, wait for the email to come in, click the link, and then vote. our process is a lot more streamlined. So because you're already inside of Condo Control, you're going to see the question vote or the question pop up right in front of your eyes, and then you can vote right away. So do people see who is attending as in a regular Zoom meeting? Yes, they do. So like we were talking about, you sort of have a number of options to choose how much information is shared. At a minimum, they'll see a list of names and first names and unit numbers. And the last couple of questions here are a great segue into our, how do you sign up if you're interested? So I'm going to put in the chat here a link for everybody. If you give me 1 second, I'm going to send this link out. This is a link to our website. Our registration form to sign up for a virtual meeting is at the bottom of the page. All you have to do is scroll to the bottom of the page, fill out the form, put in your proposed meeting date, and then we will get back to you as soon as possible with confirmation if we're available for that date or whether we have a conflict. And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you all for your questions. Greg, anything that I missed? Anything that we should mention?
I just wanted to just a reminder on how to reach us. So as stated in the beginning of the session, so if you have any needs for technical support or access related issues, feel free to contact our support team, which is stated on the screen. And then if you want to reach out to the dedicated customer success management team, so it's myself, Christine, Andrea, and Gerard, you can contact customer success at condocontrolcentral.com, and then we'll be more than happy to chat with you.
Okay. And I just realized I was looking through the chat here. I did miss one question from Nir. Nir, he's got his, they have their AGM scheduled for November 5th, and that the meeting link is already out and the reminders are going out, and then we'll send a final reminder the day of so that everybody gets it. So if you have any questions, just let us know. Okay, well, that's pretty much it. Keep an eye on your email for the recording. We'll be sending that out later. If not, it takes a little while sometimes from Zoom. If not today, we'll be sending that out tomorrow. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.